because the people were sending in so many job applications, the system just bogged down. It couldn't take all of the response, okay? Because you got these people out here with no jobs, and they, some money's better than no money. They're willing to work for basically whatever you want to pay them, because so that they can say, I'm working, I'm making something, rather than nothing. You see what I'm saying? So they didn't have to move these corporations away to get people to work for less. People are working for less anyway. Okay? So what is the reason why these corporations left? Why did the owners of these corporations, the Illuminati bankers, why did they pull these corporations out of here? Specifically, we're talking about the Illuminati bankers. Why did they move everything out of here? And like I said on previous shows, and this is the answer that most of these talk shows, most of these other TV shows, they don't have, because, and the reason why is because they don't understand this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament, which prophesies. It prophesizes the future, okay? That's why these people are called the Illuminati. They're illuminated. What makes them illuminated? Because they have the knowledge of this book of remembrance, this so-called Old Testament. And this is what they've, been studying for over 2,000 years, and because they understand it, they can go look into the future and they know what's going to happen before it happens. Okay, I mean, the soothsayer business, palm reading, tarot cards, reading the stars. This is a billion-dollar industry. Okay, you have presidents like Ronald Reagan. You understand that consulted their stargazers every day to tell them, you understand, how their stars aligned. All this type of nonsense. Okay, but the Illuminati. You understand? This house of Rothschild and this evil cabal of this of Edomites, descendants of Esau, okay, Jews, who control and have set up the whole economic system basically for the world, definitely for the Western world, and basically for the world, that it's been proceeding on, like I said in previous shows, from the Bretton Woods Agreement that was set up in 1944, put in action in 1946 after World War II. Okay, that's when they made the American dollar king. They used to use that term in reference to the American dollar. It was king. It was the king of currencies. Now, it's the poorest of currencies, almost. You know what I'm saying? It's fast descending into a total abyss, because they're inflating it so much with these stimulus packages, these bailout bills that's not going to the people. Really nothing is going to the people. The people out of the stimulus package now, one person will get a $400 tax break, couples will get $800 tax break. What's that? You barely can pay a month's a rent or a mortgage payment with that. Okay, that might be 2 or 3 weeks food bill, maybe. All depending on the size of your household. So that's really nothing. It's going to basically be mediated out to the people in as they say, $8 increments they will see on a check. Okay? So, that's nothing. So the point being is, again, where is all this money going? We're talking about book entries. They're just going to change some book entries. The people are really not going to get any money. Most of these stimulus packages is going to infrastructure, building up roads, bridges, and whatnot that they're going to use, here in America, they're going to use to convey different things around that they're going to bring in for other countries. They got their plan, but my point is that they don't care about the people. People are starving, okay? But the point is, the reason why they're doing this is because they know, from reading and studying this book, and knowing the future before it happens, they saw that the children of Israel, the so-called African American, Hebrew Israelites here in America, that were brought here in ships to this side of the world, into these islands, from Brazil, from the southernmost tip of South America, all the way up to North America. Okay? They saw the children of Israel brought over here, as it was prophesied that we would be brought and scattered, okay, into these nations. Brought, not immigrating, but being physically in chains, brought in the hulls of ships, as many of you know, This is how we were brought to this side of the world, as slaves, okay? Not as businessmen, not as entrepreneurs, but as slaves. And when they saw that movement that's in Dimona, Israel, right now, today, has been there since 1970. When they saw that movement starting to rise, when they saw that movement starting to form in the early 60s, that's when in 64 they knew what that meant. That's when they stopped putting precious metals in the coins, okay? And started putting out Earthsatz coins, you know, coins made out of metals of no worth, all right? They started to take the gold out of America through the Vietnam War. That was its main purpose. Okay, that's why in August of 71, you know, America was taking off the gold standard. Wasn't any more gold here. Okay? So again, when they saw this movement leave America and eventually go into Dimona, Israel in 1970, they knew then that this movement of Yah righteousness was coming. It was near. But they also knew that this movement that went to Dimona triggered, okay, the end of the United States of America, the daughter of Babylon. Follow me? And you can go back to the early 70s when people started to do infomercials, as they were called, on the TV, okay, about having problems with the water. We got to start thinking about saving water, conserving energy, conserving water, okay? This is when that started. The very next year in 1971, after the arrival of the Dimona movement in Dimona, okay, which is a fulfillment of prophecy as we've spoken of in the past, okay? Ezekiel chapter 16, they referred to as Sodom and her daughters. And Yah returned them to their former estate, which is Dimona, Israel, and Mitzpah, Israel. That's where they are. Okay, Dimona, Israel is called the village of peace. All right, and that's where they are. That was a fulfillment of Ezekiel chapter 16. They returned to their former estate. You substantiate that in the book of Joshua chapter 15 verse 22. You will see the cities of the tribe of Yehuda, or Judah as it's called in the transliteration. And in verse 22, you will see the city of Dimona. So they returned to their former estate. Now, when the Illuminati saw this, they knew exactly what this meant. And they knew this was the beginning of the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, the United States of America. So the very next year, they established the Trilateral Commission. David Rockefeller, Zbigniew Brzezinski. The whole purpose of this establishment of the Trilateral Commission was to speed up the leaving, okay, the evacuation, the transition of all their corporations out of America, because they're not going to leave the things that they established here to be destroyed, okay? And not only that, like I said, they wanted to sell off different, you know, parts of it, but at the same time, they started planning to rob the people. Because they're not going to allow these people here in America who've got all these investments in these stocks, okay, 401ks that came about at the beginning of the early 80s. These were all plans to rob the people of their investments, because they're not going to pay you pension plans and investments. They don't care anything about that. So the whole thing is to let this collapse and leave here with the most amount of money that they can keep from paying the masses. So they set these different scams, okay, these different modes of robbery into action. You follow me? And this is what we're witnessing now. Okay, the economic collapse of America. And again, what they're saying is basically to us, the children of Israel, okay, we know you understand who you are now. We know you understand who we are, because you understand who Yah is.